And greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. We are brought to you by our good friends over at Chirp. You've got to make sure preventative health is a big part of your lifestyle, to have a healthy lifestyle, to make sure that you can stay active, you can avoid injury as much as possible, particularly as we get older. And our friends at Chirp have a full menu of items that'll help you with that. Things that I use in my own daily life, like trigger point or foam rollers. Those are massively important in terms of helping to break up inflammation in your joints and things, particularly before and after you work out. There's the Chirp Contour for spinal decompression that you can do at home, and you don't have to go to a clinic for that. There's the Rolling Power Mini Massager. I'm going to go speak at the North Dakota GOP State Convention this weekend. I will be packing my Chirp Rolling Power Mini Massager with me. I take it with me wherever I go. That is absolutely a phenomenal device. So they've got that and more, all available for you right now. All right. Take advantage of that $50 off too when you go to gochirp.com/Steve. GoChirp, CHIRP, gochirp.com/Steve. $50 off at gochirp.com/Steve. All right. Coming up on today's show, we are going to delve into the battle over who's going to control AI. Will it be us? Will it be the Chi-Coms? Then which us? The left, the right? There's a new book out by one of the writers over at Breitbart. We're going to talk about that coming up at the bottom of the hour. And then this is the first Theology Thursday we've had since we concluded our series on Romans. And since there's a lot of discussion in the news right now about Islam, how Islam is impacting Western culture. Is it influencing Western culture? Can it assimilate into Western culture? What's happening in countries like the UK, for example? What about these Arab countries and Sunnis and Shias, and what are their differences between one another? And why, for example, is the United Arab Emirates this morning as a government way more bullish on bombing Iran into the Stone Age than Tucker Carlson is, right? We're going to get into some of that next hour on Theology Thursday. We're going to walk you through, there's more than this, but we're going to walk you through 16 ways that Christianity and Islam have irreconcilable differences. And then at the end, we're going to answer the question, can they then share a culture given these irreconcilable differences? All right. So we'll get into that for Theology Thursday next hour. You do not want to miss it. But first, you don't want to miss this. Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by another assassination overnight. The head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy, Alireza Tangsari, who directly commanded the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, was targeted in a strike. Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, said Tangsari had been killed along with other senior naval commanders in that strike. President Trump posted on Truth Social early this morning, quote, "The Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback. And yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong. They better get serious soon before it's too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back, and it won't be pretty." Also on Truth Social, Trump seems to be getting more frustrated with Republican senators saying, quote, "When is enough enough for our Republican senators? There comes a time when you must do what should have been done a long time ago, and something which the lunatic Democrats will do on day one if they ever get the chance. Terminate the filibuster, get our airports and everything else moving again. Also add the complete all 5 items, Save America Act items, go for the gold," end quote. Senate Majority Leader John Thune spoke on the Senate floor yesterday, giving a rousing support of voter ID.
Mr. President, since we began debate on the Save America Act, my Democrat colleagues have spent a lot of time hedging. And that's been particularly evident on the issue of voter ID, something that Democrats have spent years decrying as a tool of voter suppression, but are now suggesting they somehow support. Democrats can read the polls as well as any of us.
Wow, I'm fired up. In completely unrelated news, let's check back in on the cradle of liberty, shall we?
Until we have done everything in our power to bring the United States to its knees, let us not lose sight of the enemy. For every U.S. military base that crumbles, and for every U.S. soldier who returns home in a casket, we cheer. Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Shabaab, all of the resistance forces we celebrate. These popular voices on the ground spend every waking moment in direct confrontation with Zionism, and they rely on a strong Iranian state to maintain their fighting capacity.
Do you hate America? May a Hamas rocket blow up your family's home.
Yeah, that's just Philadelphia. A bunch of freak shows out there. Surely places like Idaho are safe. North Carolina?
What's the issue of this? If in Africa, girls reach maturity much younger, even here in the US, I know we have some students from our families, from our acquaintances, the girls grade 5 and they reach maturity, they reach puberty. Very briefly, the worst enemies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in his own time, did not object on this and did not say to him, oh, look, he's marrying a young lady.
Yeah, that's the voice of a quote-unquote Islamic scholar at NC State University.
You can marry a child, yeah, but you can never have the relationship with her until he's psychologically, physically able. There's nothing wrong with that. That's their culture. You cannot measure your culture to their culture. In the US, go to the history, you will find the age of marriage sometimes was 9 years old, and everyone can search now on the internet. It can be 9 years old, 8 years old. It doesn't matter.
And finally, let's go to Deep Red, Oklahoma, where a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a competent lawyer, harassed a judge in an attempt to win a parent-child visit for her client. What unfolded is Exhibit A on why women pretending to be men should not take large, vast quantities of testosterone.
I pointed you to the exact paragraph.
Stop.
It's her education.
Stop.
Stop because you don't want to hear what the argument is.
Stop. You interrupt me one more time, you are being held in direct contempt of court, and
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
wipe that smirk off.
I don't
your
have a
face.
smirk on my face.
Oh, yes, you do.
I do not. My client's not seen her child. There is no order in this court, and there's been no jurisdiction found that this court has jurisdiction over this child who has never lived in your county.
You just
Never
interrupted
lived.
me.
I did not. There was a pause. There was a break. I wasn't done with my argument.
And I was not done with my statement. You interrupted again. Do not throw your...
I did not throw. It fell off the bench. Please stop stating things that are not true, ma'am. I am trying to make my argument. You interrupted my argument halfway through
This
on
is
an
a panic button
objection.
that will get every available deputy in
Yes, ma'am. I'm aware. It's happened to
You're
me before.
interrupting. It has.
Yes.
Because you're out of line
Yeah,
with court.
I guess so.
Okay. If I push that
Or maybe
button-
because I'm a transgender attorney practicing all over the state.
I don't know what you are. You were entirely inappropriate.
You were yelling at
So-
me, and I did not even know you were the judge.
So we are pausing this until you get the ADA request form filled out and it gets processed.
So we're going to pause the hearing on jurisdiction that's been set twice. I drove an hour and a half to have the hearing. My client's available telephonically, and we are simply not even taking testimony.
Is your client available telephonically?
Yes, ma'am.
today?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then get her on the phone.
Thank you.
Your Honor, to which we would object. This is as clear as the nose on my face that this woman will not appear before this court because she has a warrant for stealing
Objection,
children from
hearsay.
another
That's
court.
not true. And you're ready
You will find, sir, that
Don't
you
come
cannot
at me and
speak over me.
or shout at me.
I'm not putting notes right
No, we're stopping.
Get out of my face,
I've been doing
sir.
it for a long
Get out of
time.
my face, sir.
You may step
Get
back.
out of my face.
You should leave this county.
Get out of my face. Get out of my
These
face.
people are my friends, and you're being ugly.
And get out of my face. Why?
Because you're in direct contempt of court. No,
Settle down. Do not grab me. Do not grab me. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're hurting me. You're hurting me. You just kicked me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Somebody go on Iron Run. Please. Please. Get a female officer now. Get a female officer now.
Yikes. And that's what happened while we were away.
America's doing pretty good.
Aaron's montage is brought to you by. I need time. I got him. I need a minute.
You're like the attorney in that video when he was just taking it all in. He was like that Ben Affleck meme where he's just exhausted, pulling on a heater. Yeah, I get it. I feel you.
Aaron's montage brought to you by, appropriately enough, Relief Factor. Wow. Holy cow. All right. If you're struggling, and you are after watching that, I am. Goodness gracious.
I can't breathe, Steve.
Get me a female officer.
Yeah, just checking boxes.
If you're struggling,
911.
if you're struggling with too much chronic pain in your body, it's probably because you just watch that clip. And also because maybe you've got too much inflammation in your joints. That's where Relief Factor comes in. All right. No guarantees it'll work, but over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start I'm about to tell you about. 70% have seen such good results over the long term that they've stuck with the product even after that 30 days was up. So why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in 3 weeks or less? When you go to relieffactor.com, get the 3-week quick start. It costs you just $20 to find out. What do you got to lose for $20 at relieffactor.com? Again, that's relieffactor.com. So I have to tell you, even before that montage, and Aaron, when you played that clip of John Thune, Democrats have read the polls too, and they know people want voter ID. My name is John Thune. You probably could never envision a scenario where I might procreate with a woman like ever. It could probably never even dawn on you whatsoever. And I voluntarily pee sitting down. That's when I pee, which isn't very often, because I don't do anything very often. I just, I move my mouth, and the puppet masters who control me from behind, my donors on K Street that I am more aligned with than any of you who vote for me. And half the time, I don't even know what words are coming out of my mouth because I am not really even my own man.
Get a male police officer.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, your reaction to that clip is kind of where I'm at right now. All right. And I'm just going to be real. I'm just going to be honest. That's all I really know how to be. Okay. To quote the great prophet Allen Iverson, I'm tired. All right. I mean, I got a text from Chip this morning. Just seems like nothing's happening up here, man. Nothing's working, nothing's happening. We've just grinded to a halt. Okay. And I've told you guys before that doing what you know is right, even when you don't feel it, is not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is doing what you know is wrong while claiming what you're doing is right. That's hypocrisy. But discipline, what does it mean to be a disciple? Discipline is you do what you know is right, even when you're not feeling it. There's nothing hypocritical about that. In fact, that's how you build a discipline. So I'm going to tell you, I'm staying in the fight. I'm fighting to the end. But right now, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I do not feel it. And I'm kind of just doing it because I know it's right. And I'm tired of hearing the Iran war is pretty much up for like 3 weeks. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of not knowing how do we end this? Who takes over? What does it even look like? I'm tired of the fact that, we have way more resolve to fight for regime change in Iran. I hate Iran. I detest the Iranian government. I think I've made that clear my entire career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw another member of the high command got killed last night. Hosannas. Okay. But I would at least just like to see us fight for the streets of Minneapolis as hard as we're fighting for the streets of Tehran. Does that make me a terrible person or some kind of traitor?
No.
I don't think so. It does. I don't think it does. I have no idea why the president, who was a victim of the FISA program for a coup attempt, wants a clean FISA bill to continue that program. I have no idea why that's the case.
No.
I don't. I just completely disagree with the message that was given at the National Republican Campaign Committee last night by the president. I just completely disagree. We're going to have a great midterm. We're going to grow our majorities. Right now, sir, you need to tell those people, get your ass in gear and do your jobs, or we're getting killed in November. I know we're all laughing at the clip of that guy at the end, but you need to understand the level of conviction. Thank you. Whatever. You need to understand the level of conviction she has. The level of conviction it takes to embarrass yourself to this degree and then not feel that you are at all. I mean, this is the moment where King Theoden just shrugs his shoulders and says, what can men do against such reckless hate? I mean, what do we do? When what we're up against is just literally soulless, and we'll just keep doing this over and over and over and over again. We have to match them with a commitment. And I'm just telling you, we just don't. And our leader needs to do better. Our general needs to do better. There has to be better than this. I mean, I got home from small group last night. I see this post from some guy high up in the Ron Paul organization going after, claiming that Vice President. Now, here's the thing. At the same time that Vance is being told that, he is an automatic Jew hater because he's friends with Tucker Carlson. Some guy high up in the Ron Paul organization and is tweeting out stuff about how Vance is secretly not America first and pro-Jew because Jacob Reeses. I know Jacob Reeses, Vance's chief of staff. I know Jacob. Jacob is a movement guy, right? He's an ideological guy. But since Jacob is Jewish, he can't possibly be America first. And I'm like, and you look at the replies, and you see some of the very people that got blown out of Heritage for supporting Tucker or backing Jacob Reeses that against that. And it's just like, who's on everybody's side? What? I don't even know what faction within my own party I'm on. I mean, some PR guy at the FBI and then Kash Patel's girlfriend the last 2 days have put out, I've read them, fantastic threads and posts breaking down how much of an op much of this is that we're being divided by. But I just have no trust of the FBI or Kash Patel at all. I 100% do not believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I don't. At least not in the way that we would define typically suicide, non-coerced. And so I can't even use things to my advantage because I don't trust who forged the weapon. You see what I'm trying to say?
Completely.
And I'm having a day today, okay? And I'm just being honest with you. I'm having a day where I'm just kind of like, I'm that Ben Affleck meme, man. I mean, I'm tired. You're like, man. I got up. I'm here. We're going to grind. We're going to fight. Because as much as I am vehemently frustrated by all of this, you know what? I shouldn't say this out loud, but I'm going to. I said this to you guys, I think it was just yesterday. I would love to call Dan Bongino up and just say, listen, you and me, let's just go clear the room of all these fools. I'd love to do that. But I love Dan. I'm not even sure we arrested the pipe bomber, let alone let alone do I think that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so I'm just, man. And while I'm venting my spleen, let me say another thing I shouldn't probably say out loud. One of the main reasons we're here is because we decided in this era to be a coalition based on vested interests, shared vested interests, and instead of shared values. And each of them, because human beings are flawed systemically, each process of aligning comes with weaknesses, right? Okay. I mean, have you ever tried? I gave my buddy Lucas Miles, head of TPUSA Faith, the line Morgan Freeman's character has from The Dark Knight. Wait a minute, you thought your play was, you're convinced your boss is one of the richest, most powerful men in America, and is also at night cosplaying as someone with his bare fist beating up the toughest hombres in this town, and your plan is to blackmail that individual? Good luck, right? I mean, Lucas, God bless him, is adamant about getting, people united within the church around shared principles. I'm like, good luck. I mean, it's not easy to build a coalition around shared values either. It's not. And if we're being honest, when we look at human history, most coalitions are successful because they have a shared foe. And you see that in our own founding. As soon as the Redcoats left the shores of Yorktown and drove away, they celebrated, and then our founding fathers started sizing each other up and went after each other. Happened right away, okay? You see this in the early church. Paul's like, some of you are acting like you're saved by me, you're saved by Peter, you're saved by Apollos. No, we're not your Savior. Jesus is. I know we've got these like incredible high pedestal views of the early church, like they just were all so perfectly connected, and they all knew the entire Bible that hadn't even been canonized yet off the top of their heads, like preternaturally knew it. No, they were human beings, and they broke down into camps too. But what you're seeing right now is, since we failed, frankly, as a movement based on shared principle, I think we demonstrated we failed at that. All right?
Sure.
We didn't really, I would argue we didn't even really try it, if we're being brutally honest. We didn't even really try it. Essentially, if a Republican establishment guy named Bush or Romney or McCain threw enough money around, you'd get anybody, I mean, the former people that were running the Heritage Foundation ran cover for Romney a decade ago that Romney Care was actually a conservative policy, and wrote a big white paper about it, not even making that up. All right, so the previous thing was we would just, change our principles for food if somebody cashed a check around here, okay? But now you're seeing the weaknesses of doing this on shared vested interests, because we've elevated a whole bunch of people on our side that we didn't really vet, that we don't really know anything about, like Joe Kent, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene. All these people kind of came out of nowhere. And the only thing they had in common was the appropriate slurpage ratio of Donald Trump. And these are now all the people. And so therefore he gave them positions in Congress. He gave them positions in his own government to reward their loyalty. And then everybody I just mentioned, what have they done with it? They've turned around now and they've stabbed him and us in the back with it, right? And so I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm at the juncture of the game. I'm going to keep playing. All right, it's almost halftime. It feels like we're down by 20 points here, right? I'm going to keep going, okay? But I need Coach. I need Coach to give me a halftime talk, man. I need a halftime talk from the ages. I do. Just going to keep it real with you. Because, I don't really see us fighting on any sustainable front whatsoever right now. Anything that truly matters to the American people. We're telling people that, hey, I know you can't sell your home or even afford one, but the economy has just never been better, and this is the golden age. I'm not feeling it, man. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep doing it because I love my country. I love my family. I love all of you. I love what we believe. I know this is the last best outpost that we have for any of those beliefs. So I'm in. I mean, I'm down to the last breath, okay? But I'm in the corner right now. I'm at the point in the movie right now where I'm like, cut me, Mick. All right? My eyes are swollen. I don't see it. I haven't gotten to the last page of the script. But right now, I'm like, I can't see, Mick. Cut me, Mick. That's kind of where I'm at right now. All right? I'm not at the, if eyes can change, yous can change. I'm not there right now. I'm at the, cut me, Mick. All right? I mean, I guess I don't know what to do. I just go out there and get punched some more, I guess. Am I alone here? Because that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
No, and that's how you should feel when you're watching. And again, great credit to you, Aaron. Parades in the street by those who aren't couching it. There's not code language. They are saying death to America over and over and over again, not across the fruited plain. And it's the instinct of a lot of the right instinct of a lot of Americans. Like, why aren't they instantly being surrounded, jailed, and or deported? And when that doesn't happen over and over and over again, you end up with a sea of people who think and feel like you do, Steve.
I don't know. It kind of seems somewhat treasonous / insurrection-y when certain people gather on the streets of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm sure it's just coincidental that that's, the cradle of liberty. Just totally coincidental. Islamists are not into showing muscle or any sort of symbolism or desecration. Never in the history of Islamism have they shown any proclivity towards those things. And on the streets of the cradle of liberty, overtly calling the United States the enemy and cheering on the destruction of bases and hoping that people, our service members, come back home in coffins, openly saying that. But Philadelphia has been weird, freak show for a while.
Can I interject just based on what you just said? I'm going to tell you too. There's been, since Rush has died, and I still admire Glenn, but it's not the same when you work with a guy every day than when you're kind of listening to him from afar, because then he just becomes kind of Glenn to you. You know what I'm saying? There's few people that I have flirted with, like truly admiring and looking up to, since we've kind of advanced into higher echelons in this industry, and Tucker is one of them. And I'm going to tell you, what's happened with him and to him, it makes my heart sick, and that's part of this too. I'm not enjoying any of this. I'm not enjoying any of the things I think I have to say. You just kind of sparked me to say that, Aaron. That I'm just, the whole thing, all of it just makes me just sick in the soul. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But those are the stakes. You're not going to beat, hey, we're gathering at a square in the cradle of liberty to chant basically death to America. We're declaring war on America. America is the enemy. You're not going to beat that type of energy with, well, Democrats can read the polls too, and the Democrats know that 80% of voters want voter ID. You're not going to beat the first energy with the latter. You're just not. And it's never been that way. Unfortunately, what I see is kind of the same thing that you see, which is we have no choice. And we'll talk about this in hour 2 in Theology Thursday. We don't have a choice but to continue on. The only way out is through.
Yeah,
hope and pray that eventually a critical mass wakes up to the trannies to the left of me, Islamists to my right. Here we are going out the way we came in. The only way out is through. That's what you have to keep hoping, praying, and working towards.
Otherwise, sooner or later, for different reasons, we're actually going to be agreeing with those Islamists, death to America, because we were getting
just not for the reasons that they're chanting it.
That's what I said. We're not for different reasons, but what we get, if we speak up and say, I'm not taking your poison jab, even if we're in the military, we're court-martialed. If I say, no, you're not going to transition my kid with your trans porn, we're going to get arrested. We're going to have to change school districts. We're going to start saying death to America too, but for different reasons, because you apparently court them more than you court us.
Again, I'm here to the end. This is what the Lord's called me to do. This is what the areas where he's gifted me and where he's placed me. So I'm going to the end of the race, okay? I'm just saying today, March 26th, and maybe I'll feel differently tomorrow. I don't know. But right now, again, I'm in the corner saying, cut me, Mick, right now. All right, my eyes are swollen, okay? I'm stumbling around in the center of the ring. I'm going to finish the fight, all right? That's what we do here, all right? But I'm reeling a little bit right now. Just keeping it real. More in a moment.
The Steve
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by Birch Gold. And gold right now is being powered by all this uncertainty. I mean, in fact, 33 ounces of gold was $20,000 20 years ago. Now it's over $165,000. Why? Because the more uncertainty, the more people go to the ultimate hedge against that uncertainty, which is gold. And it's stood the test of time for centuries. And Birch Gold Group can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. If you just text my name, Steve, to 989898, you'll get started. No obligation, just information. A free info kit on gold from Birch Gold, just to get you started. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers, you can let Birch Gold Group help you diversify with gold and give you that peace of mind. All right? Text Steve to 989898 again. Text Steve to 989898. The name of the book, Code Red, The Left, the Right, China, and the Race to Control AI. Wynton Hall is with us from Breitbart News. He is the author of the book, joining us on location there in Dallas at CPAC. Good to see you, Wynton. Thank you for joining us today, brother. How are you?
Doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Steve. Appreciate it.
So this is an issue that I think is creeping up and sneaking up on a lot of the American people. It's a technology, you know, we saw the internet kind of evolve slowly over time, right? And it's similar to the whole gay marriage issue. That issue was argued and debated for 20 years in the country, and it's still being argued and debated. But then, like, the trans issue seemed like it all happened in 20 minutes. You see what I'm saying, right? And so, we argued about the internet and privacy and how much to use it and whether students should be able to use it for classwork and use it to help you, put a resume together. We've been arguing these parameters for 20 years, and then, like, overnight, the AI issue is here, and in 20 minutes, we're just going to let it do everything. Let's start there. Is my perception of this kind of flawed, or am I just getting old?
No, you're not getting old. You're absolutely right. It's moving at warp speed. 99% of us use AI, even though 64% of us don't realize when we're using AI. And so that's part of the issue. It's baked into the algorithms that power daily life, from our weather app to our GPS to our streaming services and so forth. So it is absolutely accelerating. It's getting certainly faster implementation since we saw the November 2022 public-facing release of ChatGPT. That sort of woke people up to the reality of what was coming. But it's now accelerating even faster with something called agentic AI, which is text to action, where your cursor literally takes over, starts opening up your web browser, opening up any kind of tools, and actually doing end-to-end autonomous work. So you're absolutely right. It's moving super fast, and that's why we got to be ready.
Is it inevitable?
AI itself absolutely is, in the sense of the usage, right? Because of what we were just talking about, how it is baked into so many algorithms. Now, a lot of that is narrow AI, and a lot of people don't really have a lot of problem with that, because the reality is we've had artificial intelligence with us as a concept since 1956, right? So the creation of the term in a public-facing way has been there. And, everything from, traffic lights to air traffic control in a narrow sense using AI. Where the concern gets, obviously, and where a lot of people's alarm bells go off, is when you're looking at things like autonomous AI and specifically text to action that can actually do workflow, right? An entire workflow chain. And that's why we're hearing just even recently, even these last couple months, these very, very dramatic kinds of predictions about job loss, job displacement, and so forth. A lot of people go, well, I heard that during that was there when the Industrial Revolution came. Jobs will get displaced, but new jobs will get created. And that's part of the magic of the market and, free market capitalism. But the AI architects argue this time is very different. And the reason for that is because they argue that the jobs that will come in replacement will also be, if they're white collar cognitive jobs, able to be done by AI.
All right. To me, I think that's where the rubber meets the road, is what you just articulated here, particularly on our side, where this debate is, right? On one end, listen, if we were sitting here 100 years ago at the ascendancy of the, Henry Ford had just invented the assembly line, right? We're at the ascendancy now, the zenith of the Industrial Revolution. heading in, the roaring 20s, and people are leaving largely agrarian American life, which really hadn't changed all that much from, 1789 to 1910, frankly. All right. And now they're more urbanized. They're working at the factories, the steel mills, the smokestacks, the textile plants. And those things were kind of considered eyesores back then. Now we want to return to that era. It's kind of funny. They were the eyesores of progress back then, right? But now that's the era we want to return to. I could go work in get a high school degree, go make a living wage at the steel mill, right? Or the textile mill down the street, right? And so there's one argument that the data centers are just that next step of evolution, all right? They're the eyesore you tolerate in order to be on the right side of progress. But then you have folks that say, not necessarily. At least those jobs were even going to Americans. In this case, all right, they're going to drain your power grid, all right? They're going to drain your water supply, and those jobs are largely going to Indians that they're going to import into your country, and those jobs aren't going to go to you, right? So that's oversimplified, but that's a lot of the debate that I see and that our audience sees on the right on this, all right? Makes sense if that, is that a somewhat, at least layman's accurate description of the debate? And if so, what's it mean?
Yes, no, it's a really important question. So we just saw literally a handful of days ago, President Trump releasing this AI action work framework, and what he really was talking about there was this ratepayer protection pledge. This gets at the issue that you just brought up, which is a very important issue. Working class people should not have to pay so that some billionaire can put an AI data center in the form of, higher electric bills, higher water bills, energy costs generally for the whole community. And so what the president did was he brokered this ratepayer protection pledge, which means that any of these AI data centers have to assume that cost, make sure that it does not overflow. And in fact, in many cases, what the president's arguing is that the modernization of the electrical grids and infrastructure around those AI data centers in those local communities will actually reduce the average working class person's energy bills. We'll see if that happens. Obviously, we got to make sure that the devil will be in the details of implementation of how these tech companies do that ratepayer protection pledge. The other thing, though, to your bigger point on just the overarching, Dario Amodei literally just 2 months ago said that he's the head of Anthropic, the AI giant. He says he is expecting 50% of white-collar entry-level jobs to be displaced in the next 12 months to 5 years, okay? Mustafa Suleyman at Microsoft AI, he's their CEO. 12 to 18 months, he says white-collar jobs, tasks can be replaced. Now, to be clear, he's not saying that all jobs are going to go away in 12 to 18 months. What he's saying is that the AI will be advanced enough with agentic AI to automate the work of white-collar cognitive tasks. Now, it'll be up to those corporations how fast they implement that automation and diffuse that technology. But this is real, and the concerns are real. Even if you think that's all hype marketing, right? Let's play the devil's advocate. Let's say, even if we think, well, that's just a bunch of marketing, these guys are trying to raise capital. The issue for us in the conservative movement is that if you start seeding this narrative that this mass job apocalypse is inevitable and coming, it really builds up a lot of steam moving forward for proponents of things like mass wealth redistribution, universal basic income, UBI. And we know that Silicon Valley has been very, very active in studying and promoting those kinds of wealth redistribution resets, but also economically here in America. So it's a big issue.
Because on one hand, the kinds of jobs that you just described are getting displaced are not people voting for us. They're not on our side. I mean, right now, the number I can tell you, I can find out how you vote based on how many college degrees you have, how married you are, and how often you go to church. Those are the 3 lines of demarcation of how anybody votes in America right now, all right? And so when you talk about displacing a lot of jobs at Google and Microsoft, those are the people they import into places like Austin, Texas to vote for Beto and Tallarico, all right? Those are not our voters, right? So on one hand, you're kind of tempted to say, boy, this is just kind of, this is serendipitous, right? I mean, you guys ended up losing your livelihood to the very utilitarian worldview that you tried to impose on the rest of us. But what you're saying is the downside of that is those people aren't just going to voluntarily be homeless. They're going to become advocates now for, UBI and everything else and mainstream that within the Democratic Party. And the history shows once something gets mainstreamed in the Democratic Party, the Republicans will just try to implement it, at a tenant to on the steering wheel pace. Is that kind of what you're saying a little bit?
Yeah, and it's a double dimension. So one, the AI data center build out, you could argue, in at least in the short term, is going to have upward lift for the trades. And so you're seeing in some places 30% pay premiums on things for dry wall hangers, concrete pourers, electricians, plumbers, HVAC. So you are seeing some of that uplift in that. The question, of course, though, is how long that lasts once those data centers are in place. But it is the case that, yes, right now the kind of jobs you're talking about do affect sort of a left-leaning Democrat, Silicon Valley elites and coders, SWEs, software engineers, SWE. Those people that we know do not support conservatism. 85% of all political donations in big tech and Silicon Valley do flow to left candidates and Democratic candidates. Doesn't mean that there aren't some pockets of right-leaning or libertarian-leaning people that donate in Silicon Valley to conservative or Republican candidates. But it is an overwhelmingly one-party state, as has famously been stated. Now, the question, though, is that once you get agentic AI, and I want to be just real clear what I'm saying, this is where the cursor takes over, opens up your browser, it can set up an LLC, it can open up a banking account, it can create branding, a website, a drop ship for your Shopify account, literally do end-to-end 24 hours a day. That's what OpenClaw, we've heard a lot about OpenClaw, that development, co-work for Anthropic. These are now at a somewhat nascent state. There's still a lot of issues they're still working through, but they are accelerating very rapidly. And this is a very different type of technology than we have seen. Jensen Huang, the head of NVIDIA, the richest company that's ever existed in human history, just literally days ago at the conference said that this is the OpenClaw, this agentic kind of workflow, is the most pivotal transformation he has seen in computing within the last generation. And so we're going to see if that's real or not. But what I try to do in Code Red is explain to people that political weaponization of AI, how it can indoctrinate or educate in for our children, how it's going to play out in national security in the AI warfare space, certainly in the job space, and then really even down to things like how it's even creeping into faith and our churches and our worship. There are now AI avatars in confessional booths. There are now, quote, churches being set up to worship AI as a deity, which is sort of shocking and horrifying and dystopian. So this is moving very fast. You were right to point out the speed. And I think we just got to be coached up to understand this is a 5D chess game that's moving at a very, very rapid pace.
One more aspect of this that I want to ask you about while we still have time is who's editing this? I mean, I'm in a situation right now where I have 16 state attorney generals on my behalf that about 40 days ago sent a note to YouTube to say, why are you still punitively punishing and censoring the Steve Deace show because you didn't like the work that he did during COVID 6 years ago? Why are you still doing this? And so YouTube has about, I think it's April 16th is the deadline to respond to this, right? Okay. So now we're going to have AI that frankly, let's be honest, a lot of Americans are going to use this as an aggregator. That's what a lot of, hey, they're going to, instead of having Google, hey, is this true? And then Google sends you 10 links that are all, of course, biased from the left. AI is just going to give you the answer and they're just going to regurgitate that, right? They're going to use it as an aggregator of thought. That's how most Americans are going to use this on an everyday basis, right? So who's editing that? Who's making sure that so to me, this is all the arguments about platform or publisher with the big tech companies. Now you are putting this thing on warp drive. If people are going to use this to aggregate what they actually think, not just what they actually read.
You're exactly right, Steve. So the opening chapter of Code Red is all about what you're talking about, which is the woke AI bias. And it's even worse because you pointed out that with a Google search, at least I get to choose from links, right? I mean, they're all biased and they're all going to front load the left-leaning sources, but at least I have a choice in that. AI is different because now you are given sort of holy writ, right? Here is the definitive one answer, okay? And the authoritative tone, whether it's hallucinating, in other words, giving false information or not, is very, very definitive and confident, it sounds. Like a con man is someone who presents himself in a very confident way, but actually it has nefarious motivations. One of the things that we did at Breitbart when we launched this book was to show, I did this study using Google Gemini, because Google, as you rightly point out, is sort of one of the worst offenders here. And I asked the deep research to study the public-facing statements of the current 100 senators in the U.S. Senate and determine which, if any, have violated its hate speech policy. I know you're going to be shocked, Steve. You're going to be shocked to know that Google's Gemini only found that Republicans violate in the Senate its hate speech policy. No Democrats. They're all pure as the driven snow. 7 Republican senators. And then for kicks, it hallucinated and thought that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are still current senators. Obviously, they're not. They're the vice president and the secretary of state. And it added them for number 8 and number 9. This is a real serious problem. And it would be funny if it weren't so serious. Number one, young people who don't have a deep knowledge of history or a set of background on facts are going to be able to see this information and assume it to be true. Number two, I looked into the chain of reasoning to figure out how the Gemini actually came up with this. What was it leaning on? SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, Human Rights Watch, GLAAD, Wikipedia, a host of left and left-leaning sources that it had baked into its algorithm. And then the final thing, and this is the one that I think is really outrageous, your tax dollars and mine are going to Google. How? In the form of billion-dollar taxpayer-funded cloud computing, federal agency computing, servers, all the rest of it. They have massive, massive deals with the United States government. And my view would be this. Look, you may have a right in a free market capitalist society to make a biased product, but we should not have to be forced to subsidize and fund the very companies that hate our guts, hate our values, anathematize themselves against half of the values of the American people. As you just pointed out, Google, of course, owns YouTube as well as others, the parent company Alphabet. So President Trump, in his AI action plan, said we should not have ideologically biased AI receiving taxpayer procurements and contracts from taxpayers, and I agree with that. I think most conservatives would say, why would we give money to the very people that hate us? So we've got to be vigilant on this because, as you pointed out, it's moving so fast. And you're right. I mean, they're biased against not just you. They've been biased even, they muzzled the president of the United States because they said he, misinformation.
Folks, you got to get this book. We barely have scratched the surface. We didn't get into AI girlfriends, China, what they'll do with intellectual property with AI. There's a lot to it. Get this book, Code Red, The Left, the Right, China, and the Race to Control AI from Wynton Hall over at Breitbart. Thank you, Wynton. Great conversation. Alarming, but great.
Great to be with you, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. All right, we're going to come back. Theology Thursday, 16 irreconcilable differences between Christianity and Islam. Next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast, alongside Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. And you can let us know who you are and what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on MeWe, Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on X, DEACE. And then don't forget, you can also subscribe to the podcast version. Just hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes, you hit follow. And that's how you'll make sure that every time we do a new episode, it's for sure right there in your podcast feed. You can also, if you love the podcast, and a lot of you do, and tens of thousands of you have done this for us, leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate each and every one of those. So thank you for all of them. And thank you to our friends over at GhostBed, because I put them to the ultimate test, all right? I gave my GhostBed to my son because he pulls even fewer punches than I do. All right. And I don't pull a lot. Right. He came back, gave it a glowing review, which isn't a surprise because if you check online, you're going to see there's over 60,000 glowing reviews of GhostBed, I should say. You can also turn it into your GhostBed if you want to do that. But it's called your GhostBed. Keep you comfortable all night long. Not too hot, not too cold. And unlike those dense foam beds, GhostBed has layers of perfectly crafted support that adjusts with you. All right? And if you don't like it, they've got a 101 night sleep trial. Pretty confident, though. If they're offering you 101 nights, I'm guessing they're pretty confident, they should be, based on my son's report, that you're not going to be returning it. All right? Plus, you get an extra 10% off with my code Steve at ghostbed.com/Steve. Their everyday prices are already incredible. We get another 10% off with my code Steve at ghostbed.com/Steve, promo code Steve, ghostbed.com/Steve, promo code Steve. So Theology Thursday is underway, and with everything going on right now, in fact, there is a clip going around I've seen. At least this is the description. I've not had a chance to listen to it because we were on the air. These two guys, the Hodge twins, you know who these guys are?
Heard them.
No.
Yeah, I've heard the name. I did not know who they were, but I got a visual of them with this clip going around claiming that Islam has more in common with Christianity than Judaism does.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We're starting off a whole hour of content with that genius. Whoa. I don't know if
that's just double-digit IQ levels of retardation. All right. And tell me you're not actually a Christian without telling me you're actually a Christian. Other than the fact our Savior's a Jew and Jews wrote the entire New Testament, you're right. We have way more in common. All right? We accept the entirety of the Jewish scriptures as canon as Christians. Yes, we accept the entire canon of the entirety of Jewish scriptures as canon. All of our scriptures were written by Jews, pointing to a Jewish Savior. And our scriptures begin with a genealogy of Jews, from Adam all the way to the second Adam, Christ, in the book of Matthew, written by a guy named Levi, Jew. But you're right. Christianity has way more in common with Islam than Jews.
We have way more in common with the dude who walked into a cave 600 years later and said he was talking to Gabriel. Yes.
Now, listen, there are irreconcilable differences between Christianity and Judaism as well. There ain't 16 of them. There's just a few. They're all really big, though. All right? Is Jesus Lord or not? It's a pretty irreconcilable difference. All right? But who in this country is trying to kill you because they're wearing Property of Zion shirts?
Don't ask that question.
And everybody that's trying to kill you is wearing the Property of Queers for Palestine shirts, Property of Allah shirts. They're the ones trying to kill you. Have you noticed that? We used to notice things like that. Then we became retards. Okay. So I thought today, in particular, we needed to have a bit of a refresher course. And there's a great book that was written about 10, 20 years ago called Paul versus Muhammad, I think is what it's called. I've been thinking we might do a book study on that for the show. All right. Because it uses, well, they called it holographic technology at the time it was written. We'd call it AI today. And essentially uses holographic constructs of Paul and Muhammad that are programmed with the totality of all the words that we know that they each are claimed to have said or written. Okay. And a huge debate is held at the Astrodome, and, people can buy tickets and stuff, and they just go back and forth at each other about whose theology is proper, right? So that might be an interesting read for us to do on the show as a book study here in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah, you've mentioned it multiple times. I've still never read it, but every time you mention it, it sounds like a banger.
For now, though, here's what we're going to do for Theology Thursday. I'm going to lay out for you 16 irreconcilable differences between Christianity and Islam. Like they're not reconcilable. Like there couldn't be a give and take if you tried, right? Your left hand couldn't be a little bit your right hand, and your right hand couldn't be a little bit your left hand, and your nose couldn't be a little bit your ear, and your ear couldn't be a little bit your thumb, right? These things are not reconcilable. They're irreconcilable. And then at the end of these 16 things, we're going to discuss whether, despite those 16 irreconcilable differences, these two belief systems can share a culture together, right?
That distinction, irreconcilable, is so important because of the ones that people regularly use to say they are reconcilable. As I mentioned yesterday, monotheism, a connection to Abraham.
Right.
And so those things lull us into a sleep and are meant and designed on purpose to forget everything Steve is about to tell you.
Correct.
That's why the language he used is so important.
Number 1, Christianity says even if someone claiming to have spoken to an angel comes forth to contradict the gospel, ignore them. Islam says the angel Gabriel spoke to Muhammad to contradict the gospel. That seems pretty important.
Not only does it say, depending on the translation, perhaps it says you are cursed.
Accursed, correct, for being the one that claims an angel spoke to contradict this gospel and then spreading it. Correct, yes. So right away, foundationally, we have a problem. Number 2, Christianity says that God had a son and exists in a trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Islam says that God has no son and is not triune. In fact, Muslims will accuse Christians of being polytheists. And the Al-Aqsa Mosque, all right, the Dome of the Rock there on the Temple Mount. When Muslims took that over and constructed that Dome of the Rock there onto the top of that mosque that you can see in the famous shot there of the Jerusalem skyline, and you see the Dome of the Rock there. Carved into that roof, the Muslims wrote in Arabic, God has no son. So again, these are not open-handed issues here.
Oh. And see, even when you're soft and sloppy and you try to concede and find common ground and say, look, we're both monotheists, they turn around and say, no, we're not.
Yeah, they don't agree with that. Is so important what Todd just said. Is the Muslim world does not believe that we are fellow monotheists. They don't believe that. They will tell you that Christians are polytheists. Number 3, Christianity says that human beings are born sinners. Islam says people are basically good, and sin is not the result of a disposition you're born with, but because of individual choice. Now, Islam's going to contradict itself on this point later on, and we'll discuss that later when we get to it. But for now, again, these are very fundamental things. Where does the Word of God come from? Who has the authority on what is and isn't the Word of God? That's number 1. What's the actual essence and nature of God himself? That's number 2. Number 3, what's the actual essence of human nature? These are not trite issues. This is not, the Greek, the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic Church splintering and schisming, 1,500 years or 16 or 1,300 years ago over what date should Easter be and how many offices of bishops do each get. All right, this is existential stuff. Where's the Word of God come from? What's the nature of God? What's the nature of man? These are not trite follies. These are things of existential importance. Number 4, Christianity says because we are born sinners, we all need a savior. Islam says humanity is not in need of a savior. Again, very fundamental here. In fact, I'm having a hard time adding any exposition because these are just so matter of fact. What's the exposition? What's the exegesis? We're going to flesh this out a little more. Christianity says you need a savior. Islam says you don't. How do we draw another 20 minutes out of that talking point? Seems pretty matter of fact, right?
Well,
the sky is green or the sky is blue.
But we keep managing to draw 20 minutes out of the Jews, which is the only reason we're back here talking about this.
Indeed. Number 5, and Aaron, of course, you're welcome to interject anytime you want. Number 5, Christianity says Jesus died on a cross to atone for the sins of the world and then rose again on the 3rd day, proving that he alone is Lord. Islam says that Allah tricked the Jews into thinking they were crucifying Christ and he escaped, and therefore also never rose again. I just want to keep resetting. These are fundamental differences here. Christ says, if Christ, or Paul says, if Christ be not raised, our preaching is in vain. We're all still dead in our sins. We're the worst of sinners. We're a scam. We're a con.
And notice here, Islam basically took the same lie that the pagans were telling about the risen Lord.
Correct. Because everybody's got to reconcile with the empty tomb. Everybody has to reconcile with that. Why is it empty? Well, he was never in there, right? Or there were grave robbers who somehow defeated 2 Roman centurions and then rolled a couple 1,000-pound stone away in the middle of the night and no one found out, right? But you got to reconcile with the empty tomb. Everybody does. Every human being that's ever lived has to. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
You'll notice as we go along with these, you notice how this one is just a little bit different in tone and tenor and the facts of the matter than the first 4. It's because of what you just said there. What did our buddy Jeremiah Johnston say a couple weeks ago when we had him on the show? There's more evidence for the resurrection of Christ than the crossing of the Rubicon.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's almost as if this quote-unquote religion of Islam was devised for the sole purpose of thwarting, subverting every single main claim about the nuts and bolts of our faith.
You may come to that conclusion when we get to the end of this list.
But then, on the thing that is incontrovertible, just from a historical perspective, we got to change a little, we got to make a little fib here. We got to make a little fib. They tricked the Jews. And so that's why everybody thinks that, there's actually a resurrection, but it wasn't actually a resurrection. You'll notice that's just the darndest thing. Every single little codicil is just almost as if it was invented at its nascent stages to undermine and subvert and to be a really cheap knockoff, upside down version knockoff of Christianity. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
I'm sure that it is. Number 6, Christianity says that Christ is coming again to complete God's redemptive plan. Islam says Jesus of Nazareth will return to slay those who falsely claimed he was the Son of God. Now, to be fair, this is not a complete belief within Islam. They have their own competing eschatological theories within Islam, just as we do. But this is among the leading eschatological theories within Islam, right? That Prophet Jesus will return to slay those who falsely claimed that Allah had a son and preached polytheistic heresy instead. I'm just going to keep reiterating. These are fundamental things. These are matter-of-fact things. These are matter-of-fact claims. It's very difficult to discern where's the cartilage in the knee here. Okay? Number 7. Christianity says salvation in Christ is secure for all those who call on the name of Jesus and faithfully follow him. Islam says outside of martyrdom, there is literally nothing a Muslim can do to know they are secure in their salvation. Nothing. A Muslim can perform what are called the 5 pillars, right? Alms to the poor, trip to Mecca, Hajj to Mecca. They can perform all 5 of the pillars and still not be guaranteed and secure in their salvation.
And yet, per your earlier point, which is why I think they often, no matter where they go, live so desperately, you're simultaneously not a sinner, but you can never do anything to ultimately
seem like
please
contradictory
God.
points.
See,
Thank you for picking up on that. Yeah.
Even though Christians ultimately have to take a leap of faith, there's the Christian God is a God of reason. It's asking you to take a leap of faith, but it's not asking you to believe that up is down or down is up.
Correct.
This is, by 2 of the points you've made, you're not a sinner fundamentally, but also you can never, I repeat, that's what you're saying, never. Do anything to please God.
Only one way, martyrdom.
What's the game?
Yep, martyrdom. That's the only way. That's why there has been, violence has been a mainstream strain within Islam from the very beginning. It's the only, dying the martyr's death is the only guaranteed form of salvation.
Violence, let's just be honest, not that you were trying to be dishonest. Violence is Islam.
To some degree it is. Which brings us to number 8. Christianity calls for believers to lay down their lives before unbelievers as a testimony to their faith, just as Christ laid down his life for us. Islam commands believers to be willing to take the lives of unbelievers because of their unbelief. And if you perish in that, within that said quest, that is your guaranteed form of salvation. Can you see why they never lack for motivation? They never lack for recruitment and never have. This is why. It's an inversion. It's an inversion of what Christianity preaches, or Christianity is an inversion of what Islam preaches. You have to make the decision which is the inversion, but one of them is a willingness to lay down your life for your enemies as if they're your friends, as Christ did for you when you were his enemy to become his friend, or an emphasis to take the lives of your enemies because they won't be your friends. One or the other. But those aren't reconcilable views. Number 9. Another contradiction you're going to have with Islam right here. This is the third, or the second, I should say. Christianity argues that to some degree, human beings have free will. Islam denies free will altogether. Islam is fatalistic. Allah, inshallah, INSHALLAH, inshallah. Allah controls the will down to the microbe. Which again, makes sense. I'm not a sinner. It's not a sinful disposition. It only happens by individual choice. Yet I don't need a savior. At the same time, I'm not sure what actually saves me other than taking someone's life in the quest for the dominion of Allah. And at the same time, I'm told I don't have any free will. I don't really have any agency as an individual. Make all that make sense.
They can't. And again, that's why they don't live with hope as we are called to do. It's impossible to live a hope-filled life when chaos is imbued within the fundamentals.
Number 10. Christianity has always debated within itself how much to seek and assert worldly power, given our kingdom is not of this world. Islam has always sought world domination as a means of kingdom building.
Again, I just want to point something out as well. As much as Islam, point by point, is a direct and very to the point subversion, inversion, upside down knockoff of Christianity, you'll notice on a number of these points, you notice what it has in common, though? What an ideology that it has in common?
You say Marxism?
You can't, yeah. You're perfect. Human nature.
That's that red-green alliance thing.
Human nature is basically good.
Yep.
But no matter where you are on the intersectionality totem pole, if you're not an infidel today, you will be tomorrow, because it's moving so fast.
Steve, I think you should flesh this out a little bit more specifically, because I definitely know what you're saying. But you've been on record multiple times lately about promoting American empire. Mm-hmm. And somebody might come back at you, say, even if they're not being a smart.
Some of that is obviously tongue-in-cheek, but yes.
But about seeking worldly dominion, control, power. Well, why is it different from a authentic Christian lens than what Islam has done from the beginning?
Well, first of all, America and Christianity are not a concentric circle. Yeah. Let's start with that, okay? Our worldview greatly inspired this country, but this country has also been mired in things that were not Christian, like, for example, chattel slavery in the 18th and 19th centuries, and it was the Christian church that then had to call America into account. Okay,
yeah, that's absolutely true. Christianity has been, governments have been explicitly Christian, both Catholic and Protestant in the past, and done things in the name of the Lord. So why even then? I think it's important to point out, why is it still different?
Because ultimately, when a country is Christianized, you see more freedom and less oppression. When a country is Islamized, you see more oppression and tyranny.
So basically, you're saying an authentic Christian nationalism, which is debated all the time.
Correct.
If it's authentic and genuinely Christian, it can't.
Correct.
Mirror. That's
correct. That's why I don't. You'll never see me use the phrase toxic masculinity. There's no such thing. There's masculinity, and then there's sinful men. Okay. Sinful men are toxic, but there's nothing toxic about masculinity. There's nothing toxic about femininity. All right. Women are sinful, men are sinful. In fact, I think the best way to answer your question is the historical anecdote that you've cited so many times over the years about the British colonel
Oh yeah.
Or that
Charles Napier.
Yeah, because to me, give that because that's pretty much exactly what I'm describing.
Said it yesterday, I think.
Yeah, say it again.
Yeah, where they burning widows was a tradition in 19th century India when the man died, and he had a glib quote, and he said, "By all means, let us all follow our traditions. You follow yours, and our tradition is to hang such a man. So erect the gibbets, and we will all commence with how we live." So,
right. I mean,
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's the final scene of Apocalypto, right, where the Aztecs I think it's the Aztecs are sitting there, right, and they're just sacrificing humans, and the Spanish conquistadors show up on the shores with the cross and say, "And this is gonna stop." Yeah, we don't do that here. In the name of Christ, forbear. We're gonna stop that. Yeah. So again, you know a tree by its fruit. All right. The closer to Christ a culture becomes, the more freeing and the more it flourishes. The closer to Allah a culture becomes, the less free it is. And the more oppressive it is. So, for example, UAE, we all agree it's the most modern, moderate Islamic country in the world. It's largely abandoned Sharia law. It uses Sharia law in terms of enforcing the moral law and family law, but in terms of its civil law, it's completely not used in UAE. So right away, they had to water down their own heritage and traditions in order to become the modern country they are today. And if they had not done that, if they had stayed very close and tethered to it, they'd look way more like the Iran that they hate.
And when we water ours down, the very people that they don't want to be like are over on our shores in montage.
Correct. When we water ours down, the Aztecs start sacrificing people again. That's what happens. Yes.
Yeah. So the ironic part here, along the lines of this entire discussion, along the lines of this point in particular, point number 10, is that the West, if you are an unbeliever in the God of the universe, the God of the Bible, Jesus Christ, his son, if you are an unbeliever in that, but you do not want to convert to Islam, I say this as a Christian, you will convert to Christianity or you will die. And I'm not saying that prescriptively, I'm just saying that descriptively, because of how they seek domination and dominance. If you don't want Islam, there's no third way available to you. There's only one bulwark that is shown that it can withstand and push back against Islam.
Correct.
And that is Christianity. Now, I'm not saying this prescriptively in order to coerce conversions to Christianity. I'm just looking at the tea leaves. I'm just looking at the reality of history. And history has shown that there's only one bulwark that can stand up against this.
100%. Number 11. Christianity is a religion that influences political systems as a byproduct of its primary mission. Islam is a political system that uses religion to grow its influence as its primary mission.
I think this is one of...
There's no argument over... I know the separation of church and state has been bastardized by leftists, but this was originally a debate within Christianity. All right? What are the spheres of influence? Which spheres get what? Debated within Christianity. They're not debating this stuff within Islam. They don't. Because all is Allah, and Allah is all. And not in the way of sovereignty. Because again, there's no free will, so there's no agency. All right, everything. What does? There's a reason why Islam subjugation is inherent to Islam, because that's actually what Islam means. That's what the word means. All right, that's what it means. And so therefore, subjugation is what it does. That's what it means. Jesus says, I've come to give life and life abundantly. The thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy. Those whom the Son has set free is free indeed. There's no such statements like that anywhere in Islam. They don't exist. No one's used Islam to write a Declaration of Independence. They've used the teachings of Jesus to do it, though. This is why.
And I think this has everything to do with the Tucker conversation. For so long, we've been trying to do this. There's many paths to God, and ignore, like I said, ignore the point you made about the word you used at the beginning, irreconcilable. And so you tell yourself a lie over and over and over again like that. And it's so untenable psychologically and emotionally, just like transgenderism. You have to just ignore certain parts of reality so much that it comes out as an animal that you can't control anymore. In this conversation with Tucker, this is the reason why people have such a level of animus about the Jews irrationally because they are tamping it down where it actually belongs, and it's utterly becoming displaced. If you have this position about religion where it's all basically many paths to God, if you can make this claim psychologically and emotionally about Islam, you should be able to make the same thing about the Jews. Why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
That's because you're ignoring this point that Steve is making. And you're ignoring it with malice because it's not particularly complicated.
Correct. Number 12. Christianity commands its followers to love your neighbor as yourself. Islam says you can deceive your neighbor and also enslave them if they refuse to convert. Again, and these are... How many Christian churches are there in Saudi Arabia?
It's probably a
0.0. How many? There's 300 mosques in Texas alone.
Yeah.
Okay. How many Christian citizens are there in Qatar? 0. There's 180,000 of them in Israel. I mean, it's just.
And once again,
these are just point blank observations.
They are here in Texas, marching in the streets, saying, "We will enslave." They're saying it out loud
because this is what it's taught. They're acting on what they've been taught.
Yes. And if we over get there and say that, how's that going to go for us, Steve?
Number 13. Christianity accounts for the unique creation of women as made in the likeness and image of God, every bit as much as the men are. In fact, Christianity is the very first religion. Well, yeah, now you have to include Judaism as well, because we're really going to the Pentateuch here. The Pentateuch is the first time in human history that women are given a unique creation mythos equal to the value of the creation of men. It never happened in human history until Moses wrote those words. Meanwhile, Islam does not grant women such agency, but don't feel picked on, ladies, because it denies that anybody is made in the image of God. There's no Imago Dei anywhere in Islam. There's none. Which is why the men subjugate the women, because it just all might makes right. Since no one's the Imago Dei, no one was made. It's not. There's no words of Moses. He created them, male and female, in his image. He created them. Since that's rejected, there is no Imago Dei in Islam for anyone. Might makes right, therefore, and they've got more muscle tissue, so they subjugate you.
You know, if Uncle Screwtape or Lord Nefarious were just like jotting down a religion, don't you think this would be one of the points that they'd make?
100%.
The latter point here.
Particularly
denying the Imago
to fulfill
Dei,
the curse, the enmity between men and women.
They hate human beings.
Yes.
They hate human beings. So they would probably, if they were creating a religion in and of themselves, they would probably try to get people to believe that the Imago Dei is not a concept that is real or true.
And I can't remember the name of the two guys with the podcast you mentioned at the beginning any longer.
The Hodge twins?
The Hodge twins.
Yeah.
But if this is like a lot of so-called Theo Bro podcasts that we've seen regularly on X, here's part of the reason why psychologically people are trying to blur the lines between Christianity and Islam, because there's a lot of Theo Bro Christians right now who very much are acting that women are utterly beneath them.
100%. Yeah. And then they want to find out, hey, how do I get a woman that doesn't have a high body count and isn't a feminist with blue hair? Well, maybe if you stop treating them like chattel,
yes,
and leading like men, maybe we'd have fewer feminists out there that for you to be concerned about wrecking themselves like that. Just maybe. Maybe.
The Steve Deace Show.
Our friends at Patriot Mobile, they have been at the vanguard of the red parallel economy, right? I mean, they're the banner wavers. They're the ones taking the flag and charging the hill. And for more than 12 years, they have been helping to build out that red parallel economy that now a lot of people are trying to get into. And great. I mean, we want that to grow, no question about it. But we want to make sure that we all remember why they've been there from the beginning and then why they've lasted so long and they're so successful. It's an outstanding product, outstanding customer service team, and I can verify. First of all, I can verify the first two because I've been a customer for the last 6 years myself now, and my entire family. But then the second reason is, you know for sure, because you see their signage almost everywhere you go across the country for major events on the right. You see that they take what you have paid them with and they pay it forward with the values that you share in common with them. All right? So make the switch today. Maybe you're locked into a terrible contract with a communist corporation. They've got buyout programs. They'll also make it easy as possible. Keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. All right, just get started today. PatriotMobile.com/Steve. Use the code Steve to get started with a free month of service. PatriotMobile.com/Steve. Code Steve for a free month of service at PatriotMobile.com/Steve. Code Steve for a free month of service at PatriotMobile.com/Steve. All right, we've got a few more to go. These irreconcilable differences between Christianity and Islam. And then I think this all begs a question that we're going to have to wrestle with here towards the end of the show. All right, let's go to number 14. We have three more. Christianity points to an afterlife free from the sinful desires that now tempt our flesh. Islam points to an afterlife that permits you to indulge the sinful desires of your flesh you were once tempted by. So as the Christian, we look forward to, I'm no longer at war with my own flesh. Like, there are believers more faithful than us that when we get to heaven, we're going to see are given a level of crown and honor for their faithfulness that we don't have. But the enmity or the covetousness that you feel when you see someone have more than you, even if they earned it this side of eternity, you're not going to feel that at all in heaven. You're going to instead be like, I'm incredibly proud of what this person has done. They got everything they deserved, and I'm content with what I got what I deserved. I'm content. We that seems so cheesy, naive. You know why? Because we're in these flesh. We're in this flesh vessel that is corrupted by sin down to the subatomic level. When all that's gone, it's like one of the verses of Amazing Grace. When we've been here for 10,000 years, shining brightly as the sun. What's shining brightly as the sun? We're in these glorified bodies. We're no longer in this dying flesh. That's what we're looking forward to, is to no longer being, marriage is no longer a construct anymore. There's no husbands and wives in heaven. Bible makes that very clear. Why? Because now we have the most intimate relationship of them all. We're directly tied to Christ forever. We are longing for the day when we no longer desire the things that we know are not good for us. The Islamist longs for the day where he may now be able to indulge those things that aren't good for him. And I think that speaks also volumes about what the long-term goal and perspective of Christianity is vis-a-vis Islam. They're not the same. They're irreconcilable.
And, one reason Christian Islamic behavior is the way it is in the face of so many dots that don't connect, as we've already discussed on multiple fronts, I see them ultimately leaning on the thing that I think all of us can understand this as sinners. Pimps and hoes here on earth, pimps and hoes here in heaven. I think they lean into that because there is a certain remedial math that they can wrap their brain around when so much else of their teaching doesn't make sense. And I think there's a cautionary tale with that because we've talked about this on the show with many a Christian man behind Anon accounts and the kind that Aaron says they have their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. And they just think it doesn't matter what I do here. I've believed. There's nothing else to do. I born again. I don't know. It's just kind of a word. It's poetic, but what does it really mean? So if I just believe and I sit here in my basement, hey, I'm happy and I sit here in my basement in heaven. That has a lot more to do with Islamic thinking than you think it does.
Again, a recurring theme that I'm picking up here is both of this in the last statement about the way Islam views women and vis-a-vis the Imago Dei. Believes it does not exist, believes that it's untrue. Going back to a further point, a little further back, it's okay to deceive, enslave your neighbor if they don't convert. It's okay to kill for the name of Allah. And now with this one, you can just, their idea, the Islamic idea of paradise is that you just get to indulge in your sinful or fleshly desires.
Correct.
Basically, every step of the way, when you see somebody in another tribe and you have some very serious differences with them, what does your flesh want to do? Conquer. Put your foot down. Silence them. What are we called to do in Christianity? Pray for those who persecute you.
Mm-hmm.
Every step of the way, our fleshly desires. Our fleshly desires. It's okay to kill if it needs to be. Okay, maybe put off the sinful desires until you get to paradise. Then the sinful desires are
Let
okay.
the freak flag fly.
Let the freak flag fly. What does this sound like, actually? Taken together with their belief, the Islamic belief in the Imago Dei, not being made in the image of God. What does this sound like it's describing human beings as? Animals.
Mm-hmm.
Animals. Like a dog, just acting on instinct. That's what it sounds like. And again, the upside down, inverted version of the Christian faith.
2 more, 15. Christianity encourages evidence and testing of its claims to the point of it commanding its believers to have evidence. Like what St. Peter says, have evidence for why you believe what you believe. Christianity encourages evidence and the testing of its claims to the point it inspired much of the modern science that we call archaeology today. There are no major archaeological expeditions to confirm the claims of Islam because Islam does not permit the testing of its claims. So right away, from a philosophical, scientific advancement, human flourishing, this is why they're so far behind constantly. There's no critical thinking in Islam. Circular thinking is what is demanded. Why is the Quran true? Because Islam is true. Why is Islam true? Because the Quran says so. Well, when you quoted Jeremiah Johnston earlier saying we have more evidence of the resurrection than we do that the Rubicon was crossed, he was just talking about evidence outside the Bible when he said that, Aaron.
Yes.
He wasn't even talking about using the Bible as evidence. He was just talking about evidence outside of the Bible. And number 16, and I threw this one in because I think it speaks a lot to our current contemporary situation. Christianity claims Christ spent many of his most important moments in Jerusalem. Islam doesn't even claim Muhammad even ever set foot in Jerusalem. I took him there in a dream, never physically set foot in the place. And yet, they're warring over a place they have no historical claim, none. Muhammad never set foot in. Jesus died, buried, and rose again in Jerusalem. They have no claim on the place by their own admission, by their own history. They're willing to light the whole world on fire to control a city that their leader never set foot in and never even claimed to. What are we doing here?
Yeah. So every person who goes Tucker and says, the many paths to God, we need to open up the lanes of respect on that front. You played yourself because you think you're imposing as Christian on everybody else. The opposite is true. And that's the point that this Islam physically makes in Jerusalem. And it mimics so that they can take over the psychology of us all and allow them to march in the middle of our streets. It doesn't matter, Texas, Jerusalem, wherever, while us thinking that we're the compassionate ones for not letting them be as legitimate a path to God as anybody else. Every time we say that, they turn around and say, we're the only one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel guilty as a white person for saying Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, when they're happy to say their own version of that and not just say it, do it and oppress and conquer in every way Aaron just outlined, to the point that we are nothing but mere animals. It's obvious. This is a psyop that they are winning and we are losing, which is why at the face of this, when Steve has to point this out, some of it seems so obvious. Then why are we losing so badly?
And of course, this ties into Tucker claiming Riyadh's a better city than New York, which is ironic because we're all complaining about what's happening in New York because it's becoming more like Riyadh. All right, this stuff is, I'm just telling you, maybe Tucker was once smart, and I'm pretty confident that he was. What he is now is he's just this is self-imposed retardation. These arguments are not smart. They're easily defeatable. They're easily deconstructed right back in his face, which is why he won't come on this show. He'll come on others. We've asked. Because he knows. He knows. He's not going to get away with that stuff here. He knows that. He's hand-picking shows. The guy he was talking to the other day, all right, saying that Riyadh's better than New York. Have you ever seen that guy before?
Oh, did you? No.
In fact, I asked Grok who it was, and Grok couldn't tell me who it was. I had no idea who that other host was.
Oh.
Said Grok told me, I think it's Theo Von, but I'm not sure. I've never seen the guy. That's what Grok told me. I asked. It's clearly not Theo Von. Okay. It's because, and you do things like that, not when you think you're evangelizing, but when you are crafting a narrative and you're looking for favorable audiences that will help you get away with doing so.
We have been having this hour a worldview conversation, a theology conversation. And I think it's pretty irrefutable that there are irreconcilable differences between Christianity and Islam. I think any objective observer can make that inference. When it comes to geopolitics, if you have a massive platform and you are invited to Doha, you're invited to Riyadh, and you have a wonderful experience there, beautiful in their own ways, when it comes to geopolitics, I think you have to ask yourself, when you have a beautiful experience, is this because these people are more Qatari than they are Islamist? Are these people more Saudi than they are Islamists? Are they more Emirati than they are Islamist? Or are they Islamist, but they're courting me? They're Islamist, but they have maybe a subterfuge agenda. I happen to think I have my own schizo unifying theories for the last 50, 60, 70 years of the Middle East that I will save for another day. If you asked me, gun to my head, I think people like Mohammed bin Salman, I think he's maybe more Saudi than he is Islamist. Definitely when it comes to the United Arab Emirates, they are more Emirati than they are Islamist. I would say so, and you just pointed that out. You made that your own case for that. I think the jury may be still out on Qatar, although I still maybe lean a little bit more Islamist than I do Qatari. You see what I'm saying here? Do they care more about making sure the oil and the money flows so that they have money to buy some really cool things and build some really cool buildings than they are about the spread of Islam? I think in some of these cases, in some of these Gulf Coast countries, I think the answer to that question is yes. They more care about the money than they do maybe the spread of Islam. And they'll play footsie with it in their own country just so they can save face for the boonies, the true believers, the fundamentalists out in the boonies in the Arabian Peninsula. But when it comes to our country, if you go over there and you're courted and you have a beautiful time, a wonderful time, stay in a 6, 7, 8, 9-star hotel, just have a beautiful time. It might be the height of naivete to conclude, therefore, that Sharia is the way to go.
Yeah.
Or even playing footsie with any notion like that.
This is exactly my
You
point.
have
100%.
to be a little bit more shrewd than that. So if they are playing geopolitics and they are truly more Saudi than they are Islamist, they are truly more Qatari than they are Islamist, they truly are more Emirati than they are Islamist, great, we can do business with you. But if it's the other thing, we might not be able to do business with you or anything else with you because of the Islamism and what we just pointed out over the past hour. It is not compatible with our civilization. We have to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves when needed to be, but when it comes to Islam, wise as serpents should be more of the default than the other.
And that begs our final question. Can these two worldviews share a culture together?
Of course not.
It's going to require one to greatly diminish and dilute its own belief system to even contemplate that happening.
Which
right?
means you're not sharing.
Right. One person has already decided I have to water down what I believe in order to assimilate.
Yeah.
Right? It's an either or, correct? That's where we are. And I mean, we could 1,000-page books have been written on the differences between Christianity and Islam. This is the Reader's Digest version of this entire thing. Okay? But even a cursory review of the two belief systems demonstrate their irreconcilable differences. And confirm to coexist together in a culture requires one of them to acquiesce greatly their own belief system. Which is why 50 years ago, would there be 300 mosques in Texas?
No.
No. Why are there today? Because we have watered down our belief system. That's why. This would have been completely just, dude, hop in the DeLorean and go grab people as they're walking out of the opening weekend, 1985, of Back to the Future in suburban Dallas, suburban Austin, suburban Houston, all right, suburban El Paso, and just say, hey, You know your grandkids are going to have 300 mosques in Texas, and they're going to look at you, whether they voted for Walter Mondale last year or Ronald Reagan, they're going to look at you like both eyes are in the same socket. But here we are.
We keep telling ourselves lies that we absolutely love, and we do it in the name of Jesus, tolerance, acceptance. While they're shouting, we're going to slit your throats, and while they actually rape your daughters.
Yes.
I mean, I don't...
Why is UAE so successful and modernized? Because it greatly watered down Islam. That's why. That's why it did it. It wouldn't have been possible to do it. Worldview is destiny. It would not be possible to take a literal fundamentalist approach to Islam and create the society the United Arab Emirates has, let alone Turkey or Jordan. Not possible. That's why they don't do it. So it's one or the other, and it always was. Final thoughts, gentlemen.
Regardless of how moderate those running the show in Riyadh or Doha or elsewhere around the Middle East are or would like to be, the fact of the matter that some of the very fundamentalists who have been running Iran for the past 47 years, their descendants, their acolytes, are overrunning Europe right now, trying to overrun the New World right now. Mm-hmm. That's the reality right now. Do we understand what that means? Do we understand that they're very serious about that, what that means?
Do we also understand you're just owned by Israel?
Indeed. That'll do it for today. Back editing tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.